Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 take action success coach and strategist, igniting, inspiring, educating, and empowering people like you to take action with jet propulsion. We assist people to find and embrace their life's purpose, live their highest version of themselves, live their highest vision, and forge a strong foundation so you can soar to success. For more information, please come and visit us at ldcstrategies.com. You can email us as well at info@ldcstrategies.com. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you here on Healthy Lifestyle. Today, we're going to light you up with some verbal caffeine and possibilities. And today, we're speaking about 30 Shades of MSG. Yes, I said it. 30 Shades of MSG with our good friend Linda Pinckney, who is a certified health and wellness coach and also a certified holistic nutritionist. She is amazing. You've heard her before here on the show, and she's been in wellness space for over 20 years as a Reiki master. By the way, she does long distance Reiki, so you can actually get sessions with her as well, and recently started her own business, Manifesting Wellness, and she is manifesting, I'm telling you. She's located in beautiful northern Pocono Mountains, and her office can accommodate small workshops as well as, of course, individual Reiki sessions if you want to go in person. But she does do long distance. Welcome to the show, Linda. I'm so happy to have you here again.
Oh, well, thank you. I am so glad to be here again. You mentioned workshops. I know you're having one very soon as well. So it's
Yes. Thank you. I actually this year, or next year in 2025, I have a whole season of workshops. So it's 12 months, one workshop a month. They stack on each other. So, but you can also attend just one. So you can go and just attend one, or you can start building, and each workshop builds off the previous workshop. So it's wonderful. Our first one is vision and goal setting. And you don't want to miss that, because that's how we start our day. And that's how we start our 2025, our year, and what we're going to do next year. Personally, professionally, can't separate the two. But thank you for mentioning that, Linda. I have to give you a bonus for that, for promoting my own stuff. So that's really good.
And of course, I'm looking forward to that myself. So
I'm so excited that you're going to attend. I also have my Forged in Fire retreat, and next September. You want to jump in now. First 5 people get $1,000 off, and everything's included, soup to nuts, except for your travel, in that fee. So you need to go check it out. It's forgedinfireretreat.com. Go check it out. You really need to come. It's a beautiful experience. One of the things I do, Linda, when I have retreats is I make sure we enjoy whatever island we select. This time it's Costa Rica. We enjoy the island and we spend some quality time with each other. We're not just in classrooms all day. I don't want to be inside in classrooms all day. And having attended many retreats from many different people, I have discovered that my level of frustration was I never got to see the place. So we go in town, we do a special thing that I can't talk about because it's a surprise in town. That really is a really good thing. And then enjoy the water, enjoy the pool, enjoy the ocean. So it's so good. It's so good. It just it rebuilds you from the inside out. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So anyway, with that said, let's talk about you. Let's talk about these 30 shades of MSG for MSG, because oh my gosh, where are we finding MSG? There's all kinds of names for MSG. We don't even realize we're getting it.
It's kind of everywhere in things that you don't expect. I mean, food in your grocery stores and restaurants is in no way what it was 50 years ago. So let's talk about those differences. You can call it monosodium glutamate. You can call it soup base. You can call it stock powder. It can be called flavoring agent. Sodium caseinate. It just boggles my mind that it can be called yeast extract, which sounds great. Doesn't that sound like
it sounds very natural?
Exactly. What they do is it becomes heated and put in a different solution, and I don't recall the exact formula at this point, and then it changes the flavor and texture and function of it in the product. But at the end of it, it's still 1 salt and 2 glutamic acid molecules. So it's still the same thing, and it's still kind of, I don't want to say it will damage your body, but with repeated exposure, you can have a reaction to it. And there's enough people that have had reactions to it that, it's become a bit of a hazard. And this particular compound has gotten kind of a bad name.
Yeah, well, that's why they hide the name by changing the name from MSG to all these other fancy schmancy names. But I mean, how do they get away with it? Who's letting them get away with this, with the name changes? And two, what does it exactly do for the food? Like, what can we use in place of it if we're using something like soup bases? Because I know a lot of people use those soup bases to start their stocks.
Exactly. And it's used specifically because it has like a cheesy or a meaty flavor. And that flavor is, I've actually had pesto sauce with zero cheese in it, if you can believe it.
Oh,
Um, it's got this autolyzed yeast in it instead. So this yeast does taste very much like Parmesan cheese. And then when you add the oil and the spices to it, if you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And people with allergies, for instance, to milk, those people will want this instead of the cheese. So it does have a purpose.
right,
Okay, it's not just a flavoring. It does replace the milk components that cause some stomach trouble for people.
right.
So I think what gets conflated is how much do you eat? What situations is it appropriate? And how should it be prepared and disclosed?
Yeah, yeah,
These are the areas that are, I think, intentionally unclear because MSG, by any of the different, I found like 48 different names for it actually this morning when I was checking again. Because it does have mixed reviews, it's almost easy to put it in a soup base or in anything powdery or saucy, because they can fall back on that one resource that says, yes, MSG is okay for you.
yeah, yeah. So what's the true story? Like, what do these products do to our bodies?
First of all, they do tend to make us overeat. Um, a lot of the very processed MSGs that are, the ones that are kind of hidden in like a soup base name are extremely processed because they don't really, the maker doesn't really want you to know exactly what it is. They can be hormone disruptors. They can disrupt the salt balance in your body. So you end up getting headaches. You end up getting muscle aches. Sometimes there is muscle numbness and weakness if you've had enough of it, if you're sensitive enough to it. And sometimes skin rashes also. So
Wow.
these are the things these are the different ways it can express.
Yeah, I noticed that in the last 15 years or so, I can't eat soups out. It gives me
Mhm.
stomach aches. Some places I can, some places I can't. I suspect they're using one of these products, and I don't know what products, because in restaurants they don't have to tell you what
I
products
know.
that they're using. And not that I really want to read a label when I go to a restaurant, but I want to be able to rely on the fact that they're utilizing the best possible ingredients. So that will change what restaurant I go to. And I know even the fast food industry, they have, all these ways to really addict you to the products. And they use these chemical compounds to addict you to the products. So you
Right.
keep going back. And when you smell that smell, your mouth starts salivating, even though it's terrible for you. Um, I'm amazed at this information. When you were telling me about this, I thought, I cannot believe that they're allowed to. Who allows these restaurants and the product makers, suppliers to be able to utilize these?
This is incumbent upon approval by the FDA. So there's a huge process for food companies bringing their components forward and saying, hey, I have this new additive. This is the profile. This is the chemical compound. And, this is what it does. And here's our data. I just don't know the process for the FDA to actually vet the data. I know that our government has huge numbers of people employed, and the
Sure.
FDA has hundreds of thousands of people working for the FDA in various capacities, legal, scientific, legislative, all sorts of, but unless you live in Washington, D.C. and or get the Federal Register, you will never know when it's time for any of these components to come up for actual review. And that's what it is. They're only published in the Federal Register, and it's a small audience of people that's looking at it.
Yeah, and the other thing is here we have a different level of qualification than they do over in Europe. In Europe, they have to prove it's safe. Here, they have to prove otherwise. You know, they
They
have
just
to.
have to prove
They
that it
just
has no obvious hazards.
Correct. No obvious habits, but
Mhm.
there's a certain level. That always blew my mind, when people said, "Oh, it's a 6, not a 7." I'm like, "So what differentiates the 6 is good, the 7 is bad?" Like at what point shouldn't 0 be our mark so that we don't have any of that? So it's like, "Oh, you're allowed," but you're allowed because again, a throwback to another conversation we had in another episode, please go back and listen to them. Um, it's based on one serving. It's not based on multiple servings of multiple different products all at the same time or over a period of time. So over a period of time, that's why we are getting sick, and that's why the health. That we're hearing a lot about this now in the news. Finally, that the medical organization isn't keeping us healthy. Our food organization isn't keeping us healthy. Those two businesses together are kind of keeping us unwell because it's multi-billions of dollars. And my favorite
Right.
was, years ago, my brother's a doctor. He's now retired, but he's a neonatologist. But when he was going to medical school, he said, yeah, they've actually had the cure for the common cold since like the 30s or 40s or somewhere back there in the
Mhm.
1900s, right?
Right.
They've had the cure, but the reason why they don't allow the cure out there is because there's a whole entire aisle in the drugstores associated with products for the common cold. So they want to keep us sick so they can sell these products because they were like, well, their justification is, well, we'll put all these people out of jobs. As a business coach, I'm like, no, we're going to repurpose their tools and put them to something, a product that's safer and good for us. Why are we thinking this way? Like, who thinks this way other than someone who is just
Well,
primarily focused on making money?
profit motive is strong in this country, and unfortunately, our country can regulate its own, more or less, its own companies that are based here. Multinational companies clearly don't play by the same rules, but they're allowed to work in our country almost under a special classification.
Yeah.
This hybrid, well, we don't really belong to that class and we don't belong to that class, so we can kind of slip through the cracks. And it happens all the time. And when you look on the federal side, the legal side of our country is very segmented. We have medicine, we have the law, we have,
They're
women's
siloed.
rights, we have, each issue is segmented
Yeah, it's
and
siloed.
everyone specializes.
Yeah, they're siloed. They do specialize, but they keep it separate with purpose. The only way that it is your connection between the food industry and actually it starts in the tobacco industry. That
Yes.
addictive properties. Why pharmaceutical companies have the ability to advertise is beyond me because it's no worse than the tobacco companies who were pushing that tobacco and who were pushing, and who were making it addictive. It is a very addictive substance, especially the way that they process it. They learned all that stuff in the tobacco companies, and I learned this from you. And then they shared it with the food companies so that all those extraordinarily processed foods in the middle of our grocery store, you don't see that over in Europe. The grocery stores in Europe are small. They're small,
Right.
regular size stores, not
And
these
they're local.
stores. And they
They're
are
they're
local.
not conglomerates
No,
for the
not at
most
all.
part.
Not at all. Their produce comes from local farms. Their honey comes from local honey, beekeepers.
Mhm.
That all their products are coming local, even their wines and stuff. Do they bring some stuff in? Absolutely, but most of it is generated within their area.
Right.
So we don't have to have that sustainability to be able to ship it across and store it in warehouse for years. My favorite, I won't mention the name of the store, but there's a store that sells vitamins, and that store on average keeps those vitamins in their warehouse for an average of 2 years before it even hits their store shelves. So that means from the point of cutting the product and putting it in the capsules or pressing it into pills, whatever they're doing, and bringing it to the consumer, it could be up to 5 years old. That reduces the medicinal quality of it, and yet, they're saying, "Hey, this is, top quality." What? No, you need to like put it into pills and then,
Right.
ship it out and utilize it right away. So, all this stuff, why is this allowed, Linda?
So
Why?
these stabilizers and texturizers and preservatives are all what, you and I who are interested in fresh food would consider completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
All right. But again, this is allowed because we have it all goes back to the FDA. They're approving these things based on the single dose premise that if you just have a single dose of it at a time, it's going to be fine. But like Chinese food, you don't just have one dose of a flavor enhancer and on your Chinese food plate. Let's face it, Chinese restaurant syndrome is a thing for a reason because you have it in the sauce and you have a preservative in the vegetables and you have preservatives and texturizers in the noodles
yeah.
and you have fish, which probably is farm raised, which has all sorts of chemicals in it that aren't regulated, depending where it's produced, are not regulated by the United States.
Yeah, they even put preservatives in the duck sauce, although it tastes really good. There's preservatives in that duck sauce because that's how they get that gooey. When you see that gooiness, I'm like, oh no, I know what
Right.
that
It's probably a sugar-based, like a dextrose or a glycol poly polyglyceride anyway.
Yeah. So what is Chinese food syndrome? I've never heard that before.
Chinese food syndrome is after you've had a big Chinese food meal at one of the restaurants, headaches, flushing, sweating, um, tingling or numbness in your limbs or your face. Sometimes people will have their face swell or they'll get a red itchy rash on their limbs. Sometimes people actually are short of breath and have chest pain. This happened to this, I think, late 70s, early 80s when this started to become a thing and Chinese restaurants started to become popular in the US. A very well-known politician was at a restaurant and had this happen and sued the company and
Yeah.
it was a big to-do, but he actually thought he was having a heart attack.
Yeah. Oh, that's frightening. Yeah. The other thing I noticed is so I have a Chinese place by me, and I was looking for it's like a more natural version of what they were doing, and they call it the healthy dish. They'll make their dishes healthy,
Mhm.
and they'll make their dish like they normally do. And I always get the healthy one, and they steam it. There's none of that sauce stuff on it. It's amazingly different. And the owner actually shared with me, she's like, yeah, we don't eat that other stuff. We eat this. This is what we eat. And I was like, well, then
Mhm.
let's give me this. Never give me that, and a
Right.
huge difference. And I also didn't have that, when you eat Chinese food, you're hungry a few hours later. It feels like a few minutes later when you eat their healthy version of it. And you can actually ask for that when you go to a Chinese restaurant. You can ask for the healthy version.
Yes.
How
The
crazy is that? How
the
crazy that
healthy plate.
that's even an option. Like, why would you even offer the other thing? That to me makes me very unhappy.
Because our American advertising tells us that we are Americans and we deserve the biggest, tastiest, yummiest thing you can put on our plate.
Well, we do, but it doesn't have to be unhealthy. Why can't we have biggest, best, yummiest and still make it healthy? It doesn't have to taste like cardboard.
Well, that's a very good question.
Thank you. I
And
liked it.
it has to do, I'm sure, well, it does have to do with advertising. It's all about the advertising and the creation of false pressure to have things a certain way with a certain look and a certain consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. It befuddles me. I mean, that there are, you said, we started this segment with 30 shades of MSG. Since we started, there's 48 shades of MSG. So
Probably more.
which additives are the most common?
Ah, I actually have these. Do I have these on I actually have them written out.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back, and you can come back, and we'll ask. We'll talk about the most common additives that are out there. We really need to educate our listeners so that they understand really what to look for and how do we remedy this. We want to give them something so they can take action and take back control if they so choose, or they can continue eating the way they are. That's your choice. But, we're here to help educate you. We're going to take a short break. You're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, and if you would like to be a guest, lift up your business, product, or non-for-profit, or if you have some questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. So please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. All the information about this episode, all of our episodes are always with the episode that we send out, and our email is below as well. So we're really happy that you're here, and we're here with our dear friend Linda Pinckney, who is just so amazingly informed about food and our health, and she can really help you. Does long distance Reiki. I'm sure she does a whole bunch of other things I still don't even know. I keep learning. She's brilliant. So welcome back to the show, Linda. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm brilliant, but I certainly am well-traveled.
There you go. I like that. I like to call myself well-seasoned. So,
Yes.
so
like it.
with that said, when we left the first segment, we were talking about the which additives are most common. Again, trying to empower you all who are listening in to be able to make informed decisions. So what are those most common additives?
Sure. You'll see dextrin. You'll see hydrolyzed protein, autolyzed yeast, yeast extract, things with caseinate in the end, like sodium caseinate. There's a calcium one also, but glutamic acid, glutamic salt,
Thanks.
and monosodium L-glutamate.
What is that? A Mexican version? L-glutamate? No, I'm kidding. Just joking. Bad joke.
It depends where the sodium is on the glutamic acid
Compound.
chain.
The compound, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't pronounce half of the ones on the list for MSG.
But listen to some of these other names that sound wonderful. Natural flavors, soup-based stock powder, vegetable protein extract.
Yeah, that sounds really healthy.
To me, that's just,
I think that's
it's misleading advertising.
It's bait and switch. It's bait and
It
switch.
really is.
Yeah.
Because some of these other things, when you hear, monohydrate, L-glutamic acid, which actually is not one of the bad ones, but sodium glutamate monohydrate.
How do I know if it's good or bad? I mean, if I can't pronounce it, I presume it's bad. And it just might be a Latin version of something that's, perfectly fine. But how do I know as a consumer what's good, what's bad? How do I know? Because they don't educate us in the very governmental department of the FDA. And yes, I'm going to kick the FDA's butt. The very department of the FDA. FDA is supposed to be keeping us safe. They're doing anything but.
True story. If I were associated with the FDA and I wanted people to understand what was going on, I would publish in every single newspaper and take out ads in local radio stations, television, and say, we're reviewing this, that, and the other. Here's, go to the website. Here's a list of everything we're reviewing this week. We'd love your public comment on it. Well, if I got that email, I would be more than happy to give them my opinion.
Yeah, but they don't want our opinion because they want to do what they're doing because it's financially based. You know,
And it
those
takes
the
place
department,
behind closed doors, which
yeah,
is
dark of night. I say cloak of night, right? So it
exactly.
takes place behind closed doors. It's financially based. We're none of the governmental departments are in the business for making a profit, and yet the FDA pulls in a whole lot of money. And they say it's to cover their budget, but that's not the case, and that's not what they're there for. That's not why they were put there. They're there, and the government is there purportedly to protect us. And so they're the ones who are supposed to be our voice when somebody comes up and says, hey, this is good, prove it, show me why it's good, give me all the data behind it, and let's share it with the public. That they don't. And then they hide it in names like soup base or yeast extract or vegetable extract. That to me is not only misleading, I think it's quite frankly criminal. I think it's criminal what's being done to Americans. And we're not even aware unless people like you and I talk about it.
It's interesting that they hide behind quotations like, it was done because of public pressure. There was a public request for this. People favored this really tasty thing.
Mm.
Sure, I favor tasty food too, but not if I find out that something bad is in it. Let's take the term natural flavors, which is a fun one, because natural flavors can mean just about anything.
Well, flavors isn't real.
Flavors are just ester
a
compounds. They're a chemical chain of compounds that
Right.
produce a reaction between sight, taste, and smell.
So, but they're allowed to say natural flavors, and that natural part is misleading but as soon as it says the word flavor, just know it's like fragrance. No, it's not real. When you use the
Exactly.
word fragrance, it's not real. It's a compound. Now, if you want to utilize that, go for it. I find it interesting and ironic that the FDA's mission is to protect public health by ensuring the safety of food, drugs, and medical devices, cosmetics, and products that emit radiation, right? So they're in charge of that, and yet they have slogans like what's in it for you, you want to make a difference, FDA wants to hire you, all these like really cool campaigns and all these little sayings that we want, it's just amazing, and they're not protecting us. So really, FDA approved, is that really a good thing? I'm right now, I'll say it out loud, I'm thinking it's not a good thing. If it's FDA,
You don't feel protected?
no, not at all. 48 versions of MSG, and some of them sound like they're natural. No, I don't feel protected at all, Linda. Odd, I know.
And please understand this. MSG is one of the lowest offenders on the entire list, believe it or not. Okay, it causes an irritation. It can do a number of other things. Let me get my study out here. This was amazing. But by and large, MSG is not the worst offender.
Yeah.
It's just easy because it's got so many different forms and it's in so many different things.
And people recognize MSG, if you use some of the
Right.
other
It's
fancy
easily
schmancy,
recognizable. Right.
without a doubt. But there's, I have to assume, and this is where we make the mistake, we as Americans are assuming there is a process for approval. What is, now my question is okay, there's a process, but what is this process and why is it not transparent? To your point, why aren't we made aware that they're considering a compound that we could get feedback for? It's funny because I'm working on something else and it's about a process, and the process isn't involving the very people who need to utilize the process. They're just jamming this process down our throats, and I'm none too pleased about it. And I keep asking the question of, I don't understand why we're changing the original process. So what's the problem with the original process? Not to say it's flawless, but help us understand what the original process really is, because you only show
Mhm.
us certain things. Let us know what's the whole process, because you know what? There are a lot of smart people out there, and the people who utilize the process that I'm referring to without referring to it are people who are also smart. These people are former CEOs, CFOs, business owners. These are smart humans who could actually give good insight and also utilize the process so they understand the unintentional ramifications of making the process incorrect. And in this case, there's a lot of unintentional ramifications, negative ramifications as a result of them not understanding. The people who are setting up the process doesn't understand all the elements to the components that they're making this process for. I feel like that's the same with the FDA. They just want to grab the money. They want to put them through all these different things. They want these labeling rules that don't make sense anyway. And even the labels to me are fictitious, because it could say pure if it has only 5% of something in it. That's not pure. Pure to me is 100%. Good for you means it's zero toxicity to it. And I know nothing is zero, but let's give or take something. But 6, 10, 15, when every time you elevate it, it's like, I look at it like this. The visual I get is every serving is a grain of sugar. And as you put those grains of sugar, it starts building up a little mound, and then it's a pile, then it's a mountain, then it's, a skyscraper, right? So we want to be able to be aware of how this is impacting our lives so we can make informed decision. Why, Linda? Why are they taking away our right to make informed decisions?
It's all about money. And you have to understand, I don't know if your viewers, I'm sure many of them know, but many don't. A lot of the heads of these companies do get hired in very high level positions in government. They trade back and forth with the regulatory agencies and the companies, and the legal staff is always shifting around. So while a company may have done its due diligence to do public focus groups and consumer research, we don't know if the research that they fed to the FDA, we don't know what the vetting process is for that research.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the FDA can then say, okay, there was public comment on the product, but was there really? Was
Yeah.
there really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to do marketing, and everything was numbers. And I also worked in the public sector, and everything is numbers. And basically someone would come and say, I needed to say this. And I could honestly say that, but I'm switching the numbers around, right? So and that's why I don't do that anymore, because I was like, I can't do this. This is not okay. But it's so you can do anything with the data. The only thing that doesn't lie is the numbers, is the money. If you follow the money, and that brings me to my question, which I love asking you, is take us through an example of what corporation is dealing with what corporations, influencing what corporations, and how does that trickle down to us?
Oh boy, where do you start? So we have the USDA and FDA that are supposedly watching our health. But of course, then they have employees, as I just mentioned, who used to be with food companies. And these food companies are owned by multinational companies who have absorbed other companies over the years. For instance, um, oil companies now have owned tobacco companies, and tobacco companies then owned snack food companies, and snack food companies are now bringing in, health food companies, and all of these companies try and buy each other up and become powerful in a market sector, and become, the whole goal is to become this wealthy, well-capitalized multinational company that everyone wants to invest in.
Yeah.
So
So
they're making sales, plus they're making investments,
yeah,
and they're getting preferential treatment at legal levels also.
that's
Here's
a
the
great
problem.
But that's a great business model, but that's not great for humans. That's a great business model to have all these different segments, because if they're not getting from the health food, they're getting from the regular food, and they may be using the oil, and if they're not using the oil, maybe they're doing the tobacco. Here's the other level of it. Those same companies are owned by, or have portions of them owned by, pharmaceutical companies. Are we seeing a pattern here? The pharmaceutical companies, some of them actually have stock or interest in the health end of the spectrum as well. So they're doing pharmaceuticals, giving out the medications, but they're also in the health insurance side, saying, no, you can't do that. And so they're playing these games
Exactly.
back and forth. I'll give you a perfect example, and I just want to kind of throw these things out. And I learned this years ago, and I was one of those people who was a cloud in the sky. I used to buy by label. I used to not read labels. You know, I would just buy the manufacturer because my mom did. I did everything because, well, mom used this insert company here. I don't want to, besmirch anybody, but they do, right? So there was a thing called stevia. It's a sweetener. It's a natural sweetener. Stevia was, I'll never forget this. It was on the news. It was being held up at our port because someone said that there was toxic chemicals in it. And so FDA, USDA did their job and said, hold on, time out. We have to test this product. Fair. That's absolutely fair. And they went through the whole process and the whole 9 yards. Now, we as herbalists, and full disclosure, I'm a certified herbalist. I believe in all these, these natural products. I understand the difference between them. I understand how to tell the difference between them. I'm not really good with the scientific versions of stuff. That's when I go to you, Linda. But with that said, I then looked at who sponsored the segment, and it was sponsored by their competitor, or said to be competitor, Sweet and Low. Stevia came into the market, was once approved, and took 30% at that time. It's much more now, 30% of the Sweet and Low market away. So that's the very people who were trying to stop that from happening, who were the ones who said this is a bad product. And all they had to do was assert this is a bad product. They didn't have to prove it. They didn't have to say why. They just had to say this is a bad product, and everything stopped for the company over here trying to get it in. A lot of the natural foods coming from overseas get stopped because they don't have preservatives in them that our USDA and our FDA require here. So they get stopped and sent back to have those additives, or they have to have those additives added here. So they make it more toxic before we get to it. So, I mean, these things are real. These things are happening. Look at who sponsored a segment before you make your decision on whether or not this segment is true. I remember, they were doing natural ways to take care of headaches. That they were talking terrible. These are terrible things. You can't do that. Sponsored by Tylenol. Again, look at who's sponsoring the segments. Look at who's putting this information up. You need to be informed. You need to be your own advocate. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And you know your body the best. From the medical field to the scientific field to the food industry, all the way to addictive products. You know your body the best. You know how you react to it. I know, like, those soups, they give me agita. They make me feel icky. They make me feel sluggish. There's some like taste in them that I'm like, ugh, what is that? It's almost like you're eating plastic. I never knew why it was. It's probably one of the MSG products that you were talking about that I just didn't know, because it doesn't happen when I make the same soup at home.
Or a preservative or a texturizer.
Yeah. So what do
Because
we do, Linda? What do we do? How do we empower our listeners?
it's all about buy local. Buy, think about, where do you want to spend your money? Where do you want to put your value? Do you want to put your value on cheap food so that you can buy a lot more and get a lot sicker? Or do you want to spend maybe a little bit more, but get fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh meats from local farmers? Yeah, maybe you pay a little more, but I can almost guarantee you that if you're eating food that is healthy and nutritious, you will be fuller faster and stay satisfied longer than eating the very tasty foods with the shiny packages.
Right, and here's the thing too. And this is something that just, again, it confuses me why it's just not natural. First of all, we have the power of the purchase as consumers. The companies will no longer make it if we no longer buy it, because they generate everything off of sales. So if it's not making their numbers, they're going to stop making the garbage. So if we stop buying it, they're going to stop making it. The other thing is although it's seemingly more expensive on the front end to eat like that or take substance to support your body, good products to support your body and put on your body and put in your body on the front end, it might be more expensive, but look at all the money that you will save, because on the back end, if you don't do that on the front end, it's way more expensive on the back end. Think of all of the cancer that's out there. Think of all of the diseases that are out there that never existed before the 1970s. Think about that, because it was the switch between the 70s and 80s. We're finding that switch, that shift happened there, where they started introducing all these new things. This didn't happen to my grandparents. My grandparents lived to very old age, and my grandfather used to eat the fat off of his plate and mine, because I thought it was gross. I don't like the texture, right? He would, just eat the most terrible things that most people would say, don't do that. That's not good for your heart. And the man lived into his 90s. So we need to think about it. Don't you agree? Spend the money on good products like the collagen. You have a product that's a liquid collagen. That's amazing.
It's amazing. All natural.
Yeah, and that's good for so many things. Another show, we're going to go into the different products, because that all natural, truly all natural, mindfully crafted food supplements are really going to protect your body on the front end, so you don't need the medical attention on the back end. And that's why when you see these healthy 80, 90-year-olds that have probably more mental capacity than I do, because they're taking care of themselves on the front end.
Right. And people have to understand that approximately 60% of our adult population has diet-based disease. Diet-based. Perfectly within your control. So it pays you 1,000-fold to learn what's in food and, follow. It doesn't have to be me, but I would love it if you'd come and have some coaching with me, because I can help you make better choices. There's a lot of information out there online, different places. Educate yourself. Do not fall for the brainwashing mind control that goes on in commercial television.
Yes.
Don't fall for it.
Yeah. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. And if somebody is, feeling intimidated by the fact that you're asking questions, they're not the right person. I pelt you with questions, Linda, and you just keep coming back with information. My favorite thing that you do, and I so respect this for you, if you're not sure, you don't know, or you don't have it at the tip of your tongue, you're like, I'll get back to you. But you do the research, you come back, you show me the research, you show me, where you're getting the information from to help educate me so I can make better decisions when you're not around me, although I want you always around me. But when you're not available, it's similar to my golf coach. He educates me. So when I'm out golfing and he's not there, I can make shifts with my game. The same thing with making food decisions. Last few seconds, Linda, and I can't believe the time went by so quickly. I'm a Take Action Success Coach. What action can our listeners and our viewers take right after this episode ends to take steps to really taking back control over their own health?
Oh gosh, there's some really great apps out there for checking your foods. One is YUKA, Y-U-K-A. Another one is Foodvisor. Noom, N-O-O-M. Their app helps you assess foods. And then there's one specifically for health and beauty products. One is Detox Me, and the other is Think Dirty. Now, on the
YUKA and Think Dirty are free. Noom, there's a cost to it. And I think Foodvisor, there's a cost to it. It doesn't matter, whatever works for you, go out and get it. I need to have you back because there's other things. Really quick, you had another one real quick?
No, I was just saying that on the food side, I believe the higher number is better, but on Think Dirty, you want a 0 or a 1. And all of the products that I work with are 0 or 1.
Love, love, love that. Linda, we're going to have you back. You know that you're going to be monthly. I want you back all the time because you just give out all that information. To find Linda, go to manifestwellness.us. That's www.manifestwellness.us. It's Linda Pinckney. Linda, you are such a treasure of information. Thank you so much for being on. And I look forward to seeing you next month in the new year.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we earned the privilege of your time. Look for our show, of course, next Saturday at 3 p.m. on JVC Broadcasting and iHeartRadio. We can also be found on, get this, all major platforms, and would be so grateful if you please like, follow, share, and subscribe. And please take a moment to check into our Take Action community, where you'll interact with like-minded individuals and have access to tools, giveaways, challenges, and other yummies that we put out there. Until next time, I am Coach Lorianne. Let your dreams be bigger than your fears, and let your life be filled with joy. Have a great day. See you next time. Thanks, Linda.